Okay, it is 2, so I'm gonna go ahead and get us sort of soft started with some things that it's okay if you miss and you can get caught up from. And we'll see if more people join us. I'm Emily. I work at the NASA ERC in Fairmont. Well, normally I work there. Now I'm working in my spare bedroom. But we're going to try our best to deliver a series of online trainings to make up for the fact that we can't come out and do workshops like we would normally do. And so this is really the first thing that we're trying, is to do some Scratch instruction. Um, I said this before, but for people who who weren't in the meeting, well, number one, I'm recording this. If it goes well, I'm going to archive it online so that people can access it. So just so you're aware, you don't have to share your video if you don't want to. I don't think it's going to be in the recording, but I'm not very familiar with Zoom, so I'm not going to promise that it isn't going to be in there. You can unmute yourself at any time. I'm going to be sharing my screen for most of this Zoom meeting. And if you have something to say in the chat, I don't think I can access the chat while I'm sharing my screen. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions as you have them. The 2 links that I've posted in the chat are the link to the Scratch website and the link to the Google Slides presentation that I'm going to be basing it on. This training is basically going to be a live version of all the steps that are in that document. So you have access to what is going to happen step by step. In case I move away from something too fast, you can always look in that document and look at the code and what you need to do for each of those steps. So that's a good way to back up. Welcome, all of you. Thank you for sharing your afternoon with me. This has been such a weird time that it is so nice to be back in front of a group of people doing a training like this. And let's get started. So I see a lot of your little anonymous avatars on the top of this. That's always so fun about Google Documents, is that if you're signed in, it'll show your initials or your avatar picture. But if you're not signed in, it just assigns you some random animal. So there's like a jackalope and a dinosaur and stuff checking this out today. And that's great. Scratch is a really cool programming language that is very kid-friendly. One of the things that we're really excited about at the ERC is that we are hearing from our robotics competitions that we work with that they're moving towards Scratch as the programming language for it. So if your students are familiar with Scratch, it really lowers the bar to getting them involved in competitive robotics, which is a really cool thing. This is just the steps to make an account. It's really simple. If you haven't done so already, please follow along and get yourself an account so you can be doing the things that I'm showing you as I'm doing them. You just join, it's free. It has never been a paid account. There's no premium side of it. Everyone gets the best Scratch. Okay, one of the great things about Scratch, and I'll show you when we're in the program, is it supports a ton of different languages, which can be really nice. And that's just basically how to do that. You do need an email address associated with it. I would tend to have students who are younger use their parents' email addresses if you're having them set up their own Scratch accounts. And then that way there's fewer privacy issues.
I got to this spot. This is Kathy Jones speaking.
Yeah.
I got to this spot and it would not let me past it. It says, whoops, Scratch had an error.
Oh no. I would guess their servers are probably getting hit pretty hard right now, not with our training necessarily, but with kids being home from school, and this is a really great distance learning thing.
Okay.
I might try opening it in a new browser and seeing if that'll work for you, or just giving it a little bit of time and trying again. I'm sorry, I can't really troubleshoot that.
I made an account about 2 hours ago from my home computer using my Gmail account, from my home computer, and I had no problem. So it could just be a overload issue.
I would just try it again, and hopefully it'll let you through.
What browser is she using? I was using Safari.
Chrome.
Yeah, if something doesn't work for me, I usually either just give it some time or try a different browser. So see if you can get in. Okay. So this document, if you haven't gotten it already, if you type in bit.ly/capital ERC, lowercase SCR, capital B, lowercase ASIC, That is case sensitive, but it'll take you to this document and you can follow along there. And then that's the Scratch website. Well, that's just a regular slide. I don't know why it would take so long to load.
Computer networks are on overload
I
from so many people being on them at home.
I know it, I guess. You know, those are image heavy slides. So maybe we'll just skip those and go to our contact information. That was just my little bit about the ERC, but I can do that without having a picture prompt. It's just a little bit less fun. So our team works at the NASA facility in Fairmont, and we do educational outreach. We do summer camps. We help run robotics tournaments. We do teacher training. We have our equipment loan program where teachers can borrow kits for free that we've had to suspend right now because we're not allowed in the building. But we are really excited about the opportunities to share new trainings and new things with teachers who are out of their classrooms and trying to help their kids learn long distance. And so this is one of the things we're developing to help with this. I've not given this training before, so your feedback is going to be really important for helping me improve this and make this into something that's really useful. Our regular NASA emails are harder to get to when we're not at the office. So if you're used to emailing us at our @nasa.gov emails, these are better emails to get to us currently. I'm still checking mine, but I'm checking it about once a day. My Fairmont State email I'm on about every 5 minutes. So this would be a good image to screenshot or to capture from the document if you want to get in touch with any of the ERC outreach team. Okay, so we're going to start. We're going to make a basic program that lets our cat move around the screen. And we're going to program an Easter egg into it, which is kind of like how literature has its conventions and themes and general understandings about language. Programming is kind of the same way, and a common feature of a lot of programs is an Easter egg. It's a hidden thing that your users aren't necessarily going to know about, but might stumble across as they're interacting with the game. So we're going to start with something really basic, and then we're going to program in something a little bit more challenging. So I'm going to switch screens and go to the Scratch interface now, and if you would join me, that would be fantastic. So on this Scratch site, if I want to make a new program, I'm just going to click on the button that says Create over here on top. And every project that starts looks exactly like this. We've got our little cat here that's called a sprite. And a sprite is just anything that the user can interact with. It could be a button, it could be a shape, it could be part of a shape. But we're going to leave it as the cat for now because that's really happy with, that's what we want. We want to deal with just the basic cat. And that's going to be our character that we're going to program how to move. And we don't want our cat just floating in blank space. So if you go down here to this button, down where it says stage, right now we have one backdrop and it's just white. If we click on this button here, we can find a new background. And I know they're not loading, but I like blue sky, and so I'm going to click on it even though it's not loading. So now our cat has a world to be in, not just a, limitless void. And then I'm going to drag my cat down so that it's just sitting on the ground, okay? So take a moment, start your program, get your cat on the ground, make there be a ground, and then pop back over when you have that done. I'm going to exit screen share right now and just check in on the chat. So if you haven't found the chat yet, if you mouse over sort of the bottom row of your Zoom window, there should be a bar that pops up with a bunch of features where you can mute or start your video. And one of those features is the chat window. And so if you just pull that up, that's going to be a good way to communicate with each other. All right, we got some beach going cats. This is good. Okay, Judith, the background button, I'm going to go back into share, is all the way in the bottom right corner. So down here, you can see my circle, my cursor moving in a circle around it. The stage is the different backgrounds that you can have your sprites on. And if you hit this one, you can choose a backdrop, draw your own backdrop, pick a random backdrop, or upload a backdrop from a file on your computer. So you could have your students draw their own backgrounds first, scan them in, and then they can upload them and make them part of a program. Okay, I'm gonna trust that we're mostly okay and on the right track with that. If you're following along in the document, that would be step 2. So I've got those big yellow letters in there. And we're gonna move on to step 3. So we want our cat to be able to move. And this big block in the center here that's blank right now, except for this little ghost cat, this is all of the code that's associated with our sprite. If I click onto the backdrop, I can associate code with the backdrop too, but mostly that's just like changes in which backdrop we're using. We're gonna put almost all of our code today on the cat. So every time you start a code, you have to use one of the event blocks. And there are these color-coded palettes over here is what they're called, that do different things. And so the events palettes all have this kind of bump on top, and they're what start the code. Okay, so if you want your thing to do anything, it has to have one of these events to start it out. And what we want is we want this when blank key is pressed bit of code. So we're gonna have the cat move around with the A and D keys. That's a really normal convention. You can use the arrow keys, but A, D, S, and W are also really common keys to use to navigate because your fingers just fit on them and they have the same kind of orientation as the arrow keys. So that's what we're gonna use today. So I'm gonna start by saying when the D key is pressed, you'll notice that it defaults to spacebar, but you can change that. So if you click on where it says when space key is pressed, you can change it to D. And what I want to have happen is I want my sprite to move. I want it to go to the right on the screen. So I'm gonna go up to the motion palette, which are all the blue blocks over here. And I'm gonna say move 10 steps. And so now when I press the D key, you'll see my mouse, or my cat, sorry, just kind of bounce across the screen a little bit like that. So my code right now is when the D key is pressed, move 10 steps. Go ahead and make sure your code is like that too, and get your mouse or get your cat hopping across the screen. Let me know if you're having problems, please. Oh, good, I can see the chat window. Can I get that to pull up? Yes. So if you press the D key, it only moves one at a time. So I would need to press the D key multiple times to get it to move more than once. That's okay. That's normal. If you want it to move more than that, you can change the code to make it move farther than 10 steps. I'm leaving it at that default, but that's by no means an indication you have to leave it at that. Hit motion, nothing shows up. Okay, so up here, when you click on this palette, Will, do you want to share your screen with me? If you hit that green share button on the bottom, we can see what you're doing. Okay, it's a little green box with an arrow pointing up in it, and it says share. It should be in the center of the bottom of the Zoom meeting.
You have to move your cursor down towards the bottom of the screen for it to show up.
Yeah, it hides it sometimes. So if you float your cursor down at the bottom of the screen. There you go, Will. Okay, so when you click on motion, oh, okay, I see what the issue is. You're on the stage still. Do you see how your stage is blue on the side? Click your sprite. Click your cat on the bottom. Go down about 2 inches. There you go. Now you want to bring in your event block and your movement block. You can't code motion on the backdrop. And so now you have got this. All right. Does everyone else who is having an issue think that that was their issue too? You want to make sure you see that cat watermark there. That is 10. One looks like 10. I think the 10 is 10 pixels, which is really small. So if you changed it to 1, you would see your cat move even less. So 10 is a really small amount. Okay, I'm stealing it back from you, Will. So now that we're all moving our cats across the board, it would be nice if we could move them in the opposite direction, right? So the easiest way to do this is if you right click, or if you have a Mac control click, you can duplicate the block. If you click it on the blue block, it's just going to copy the blue block. But if you click it on that event block that starts it out, it'll duplicate the whole thing. Was there, I don't know if there is an alternate way to get to Scratch. MIT, where to go to Scratch? That's the website that it should go to. I'm not sure what to tell you. I think it's getting hit really hard with a lot of people being online. So now we want to go in the opposite direction, and to go in the opposite direction, we're going to use the A key. And instead of going 10 steps, oh, nice. Instead of seeing 10 steps, we're going to go negative 10 steps. Okay, so now when you press D, your cat's still going to the right, but now when you press A, it's going to the left. Okay, so this is the code that we have for now. And if you want to go back to events and pull out a new when the key is pressed, and then to motion and pull in a new -10 steps, that's totally fine. One of the cool things about coding is there's like 1.5 million ways to get to where you want to go. You just have to figure out a way that works. And as long as it works to your satisfaction, there's no right or wrong answer with it. So get your cat moving backwards and forwards. Oh, you like 100 for the step size? I like that. Good. So now that we've got the cat moving forwards and backwards, I know when I first coded this, even though like I know in my brain that it's not going to do this because I didn't tell it to do this, I was expecting my cat to flip around and like start pointing the other way. I don't know if anyone else had that feeling when they first saw the cat going the opposite direction. It's like, why is the cat going backwards and not just turning around? Well, it's doing that because we didn't tell the cat to turn around. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to tell the cat to turn around. And the way we're going to do that is with a costume. So if you see on this Scratch screen here, we're in the coding section right now. There's also costumes and sounds. We're going to go to costumes. And as you can see, there are already 2 costumes in here. We're going to deal with costume 2 later, so leave costume 2 alone. But what we want to do now is we want to copy costume 1. Oh, just kidding. I'm going to right click on it or control click on Mac and say duplicate. And that automatically makes a costume 3. Okay, so if you haven't yet, get a copy of costume 1 by right clicking on it. And then we are just going to click this flip horizontal button. And now our cat is facing the opposite direction. Okay, so we have 3 costumes now, one of them facing to the right, one of them facing to the left, and one that we're not going to worry about at the moment. But the important thing to remember is the one that you just created was costume 3. Now we're going to go back to our code, and we're going to say when the A key is pressed, not only are we going to move 10 steps, but we're going to go to this looks palette down here, and we are going to switch our costume to costume 3. Now, when the D key is pressed, we want it to switch back to costume 1. Okay, and it honestly doesn't matter whether you put this purple block in between the blue or underneath it. It's happening so fast, it doesn't really matter. But now when you press A and D, your cat is actually looking in the direction that it is moving. Okay, so I'm gonna leave my screen there and let me know if you're having any issues or if your cat's doing what it's supposed to do. So I've got my chat up and I can see it now. Let me know if you need help with anything, if something's confusing, if you want me to go back somewhere. Okay, Patricia, I'm gonna leave screen sharing. If you wanna share your screen with us, I can definitely talk you through it. And I'm sure it will help someone else too. Okay, so what I want you to do is right click on costume 3 that you have up there. Oh, you have 2 copies, that's fine. Oh no, yeah, and then click on duplicate, just kidding. Click duplicate. Okay, and now on this one that now says costume 4, go over past the trash can, kind of above the cat's whiskers. Way farther over, sorry, there's 2 trash cans and I'm realizing that's an issue. Go over about 5 inches to the right with your cursor, and I'll tell you when you're getting warmer. Move your cursor 5 inches to the right. Slide it. Okay, good. No, don't decapitate your cat. Don't do that. You're fine. You're fine. Don't worry. Okay, so click where you're at. Okay, leave that alone now. Now go over about 2 more inches to the cat's other whiskers on the other side of its face, and then go straight up. Go up to the tool menu that's above it. Okay, you see copy, paste, delete, flip horizontal is the thing that you want. So go over to the next one's paste. There you go. Click flip horizontal. And there your cat's facing the other direction. Okay, so you've got 2 costumes now and are just gonna be named a little bit differently. Don't worry about it. We're gonna deal with something to do with that later anyway. So when you go back to your code, okay, you're gonna go to the looks menu, which is the purple one. Yep, upload, yeah. And then you're gonna do switch to costume 2, drag that underneath the D key, like take the whole block, not just changing that part. And drag it over, click it into place. Yep. And then you're gonna bring another one of those same blocks under when the D key is pressed and switch it to, I think, costume 3 for you. Okay, now try it out. Press A and D and see if that works. Nice. Okay, I'm stealing back control. If you are playing our home game and following along in the instructions, I'm gonna skip over a few of the steps there and we're gonna move on to the Easter egg. The steps that I'm skipping just give the little cat the illusion of motion and involve the wait block, which is an important block to have, but I would rather get to the Easter egg stuff, and we can go back and do that if we have time for it. So I'm skipping a few steps, and I'm going to be at the Easter egg plan, which starts with step 11, if you are following along in the book. Okay. Yes, you're going to make separate piles that do different things, Judith, to answer your question. And sometimes that's more important than other times. I think you can do a lot of them in one single string, but Scratch really encourages you to have separate events. Oh, sorry, when I say book, I mean that PowerPoint that I shared with you via email, and I'm going to copy and paste it again. It's not a real book. It's just a PowerPoint presentation. It's a Google Slides document. Okay, no worries. So what I said before about how normally the AD, S, and W are used to move around in a lot of video games is true. And usually W and S are up and down then. And so what I want my Easter egg to do is I want to enable flying for this cat. So I want to have, if someone who's playing this game happens to press the W key, knowing that normally W makes you go up, I want them to be able to fly, okay? So I'm gonna make an if statement. No, just kidding. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. To do that, I am going to make a new sprite, and I'm going to have this sprite appear the first time that the person presses the W, and then they have to walk the cat over to this new sprite to unlock their ability to make their cat fly. So you'll notice if I mouse over this choose a sprite thing down here, I have the same options as I did on the backdrop. I can search for one that's in the Scratch library. I can make my own. I can choose a surprise one, or I can upload a sprite. So I'm just hovering over choose a sprite, and I'm going to click on surprise because I just want a random sprite, and that'll be whatever magically unlocks my cat's ability to fly in this game. Oh my gosh, it's a dragon. How great is that? So our cat is going to run into a dragon, and the dragon is going to give it the power to fly. Perfect. So I don't like how big the dragon is though. So I've got my dragon selected, and I can tell my dragon is selected because I've got this blue line around it. And because in the coding pane here, I've got the little watermark dragon. Right now its size is 100. I'm gonna make it be a tiny dragon. I'm gonna cut it down to 25% of its size. Okay. And so it's gonna be hiding here in the bushes, and it will appear when the W key is pressed. So to make it appear when the W key is pressed, I'm going to go down to events, and I need two different events. I want to pull in this when the space key is pressed one, and I'm going to change it to W because that's going to be the key that allows this thing to appear. And then I'm going to want it to be hidden when the game starts, right? If I don't tell it to re-hide itself at the start of every game, then after the first person plays it and unlocks the dragon, it's just going to be there all the time. So I'm going to need this when the green flag is clicked. When the green flag is clicked is how users start playing your game or start interacting with your program. So I'm going to pull both of those in from events now. And then the only other blocks I need for this are in the looks palette. And they're a little bit farther down. They're show and hide. So I want to show my dragon when the W key is pressed and hide it when I press start. And so what that looks like is when I press the start, it hides. As soon as I hit W, it appears. And then it's just there for the rest of the game. Okay. And I don't like how much my dragon is blending into the background. So while you guys get whatever object you chose, so it'll hide and show itself, I'm going to go and change my dragon's color in the costumes. So pipe up and let me know if you're having issues or questions, okay? Because I'm just messing around at this point. Everyone's really okay? Like no one's having major issues? Please tell me if you're having issues. We'll be happy to help troubleshoot. Okay. Sorry, Denise. I put my chat window so it was out of the way, but now I can't see it. I think I've got a solution there though. Okay. So all the Dragon's code has is when the W key is pressed, it will show itself. And when this is clicked, when the program starts, it will hide itself. Oh, sizing. So your sprites down here have a ton of little controls. You can tell them where to go on the screen from here. You can tell them what direction to be pointing in, and you can tell them their size. You can also show and hide them here with these buttons. So this size is a percentage. They start out at 100 by default, and then you can make them larger or smaller. They're mostly vector graphics, which means that you can resize them and they aren't going to start looking grainy. So you can have that dragon take up the whole screen and it's still going to look pretty good. It's just going to look like a whole lot of dragon. And you don't have to resize your sprite. Mine was just kind of large for what I was doing. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next thing we're going to do, which is where we really start to get into what feels like coding. We're going to start some logical statements. And to do that, I'm going to go back to the cat. So I'm not going to be on the dragon anymore. I'm going to click on my cat. And I know I'm on my cat's code because not only do I recognize the stuff that I see, but I see that cat watermark up there again. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in an if-then statement because I don't always want my cat to be able to fly. I only want it to be able to fly after it's enabled things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, yes, I need to start with an event. And I want to say, okay, if the cat is touching the dragon, then I want you to enable flying. Okay, so I'm going to pull in this when the start button is clicked, because this isn't something that has an input from the user directly. It's just something that happens throughout the course of the program. And then to get to the if-then statements, I'm going to go to control. And control is where a lot of these more computer science-y kind of things hang out. So we're going to have an if statement. And we're going to need to make a variable. And the variables are down here. So when I click make a variable, it pops up. And I'm going to say it's for all sprites. I don't think it really matters for this one, but that's fine. And we're going to call this variable flying. So now I have this new variable called flying, and I'm going to say that when it hits the dragon, I want to change flying to, or set flying to 1. I'm going to treat this like a binary statement. If flying is 0, I'm not going to have flying, but if flying is 1, then I will have it flying. And now I need to fill in this little hexagon in between if and then with a check, with a thing that says, okay, is my cat at my dragon? And there's a couple ways to do this, but the best way, like the cutest way to do it, is with sensing. So we're going to go up to sensing, and we're going to say touching, which is the first block in here. When I pick touching and I hold it into that spot, do you see how it changes and it looks like it's lit up around that hexagon? Okay, so once I put it there and it lights up a little bit and then it doesn't, that's because it wants to go in there. You need to put a block that is shaped like this, that's shaped like a hexagon, into that hexagon space. So it's lighting up to let you know that it recognizes you're trying to drop it in there. So then when I do that, I'm going to change this from touching mouse pointer to touching dragon. So what I'm saying is I want, when the start button is clicked, I want it to be touching the dragon. And if it's touching the dragon, then flying is going to be 1. Okay? So the other part I need to code is the actual motion part. But I want to make sure everyone's okay now. Are we sort of okay, or does someone want to share their screen with me and talk to me about what their process is, how they're doing? I'm not seeing anyone pipe up in the chat. Okay, are you sure? We could get you caught up together, because my guess is you're not the only person who's a little bit lost right now. We're going up a pretty steep portion of the learning curve right now on this. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to control. Oh, sorry, back to events. And then we're going to put in another one of these when key is pressed. And we're going to set it to W. So this is going to be what's going to control the motion of our cat. So we can't just program it the same way we did as A and D, because that would mean that whenever they pressed the W key, they would go up. We want to perform that logic check to see if flying is turned on. So we're going to go down to control, and we're going to pull in an if-then statement. Okay, we're going to go down to our variables, and we're going to pull out our variable flying. Okay, this just means when it's circular like that, it's a number. So this is just pulling in the number that flying is, and I'm just putting it down here floating in space right now. It's not connected to anything because I'm going to fill it into an operator in a second. I just wanted to have it on hand. Okay, so now we're going to go to operators, which are the green ones. And this is where you can have it do math for you. Okay, you can add together numbers, either variables or regular numbers. You can have it choose a random number. You can combine strings, which is kind of cool. Modulo is neat, but we're not going to get into it today. The only thing we want to worry about is this one that says if bubble equals 50. That's definitely what we want. And we are going to slide it into our if-then statement by mousing over to the point where it lights up and it fits in there. Then I can do the same thing with my flying variable. If I hold it over that oval, flying will drop into it. I don't want flying to be 50 though. What I'm checking though is for flying to be 1, right? Because if flying is 1, it means our cat ran into our dragon, and it means our cat can fly now. So now it's going to check every time when the W key is pressed, if flying is set to 0, or if flying is set to 1, then we need to tell it how to move. We haven't actually had it do anything yet. That's why there's this gap waiting here. Okay, those if-then statements are like those hungry mouths, and they need something in them to do. So I'm going to go back up to motion. Move just makes me move laterally back and forth. I want to move up and down. So I'm going to go down here to where it says change Y. And this is great because Scratch is basically, its whole setup is a coordinate plane. So it's good practice for students who are working on coordinate planes. How did I get the dragon? Oh, good. Okay, so I went down here to sprites, and I just clicked surprise and got a random one. If you really want a dragon, you can do choose a sprite and search for dragon. So down here, you can add whatever other sprites you want, either through searching, drawing, or a random one, or uploading them from your computer. Okay. So up here, I've got when the W key is pressed, if flying is 1, then I want you to change Y by 10. That means that I'll move the same amount up and down, well, just up, as I was side to side. So if you were one of those people who wanted your move to be 100 steps, then I would change Y by 100 as well. Okay, so I'm pressing W, and nothing is happening. Well, I haven't gone and touched the dragon yet, so maybe I need to touch the dragon. And now I'm pressing W again, and still nothing is happening. And what gives? Why is my cat not flying? I'm putting it this way, I'm planning it in this way because programming is frustration. There is always going to be a gap at some point between what you want it to do and what it is actually doing. And you have to lean into that frustration with your kids, because that's honestly where the fun part is. Like, there's a huge difference between writing out a set of directions for someone to follow and what they're probably actually going to do with those directions. And coding's the same way, except it's going to follow your directions exactly. It's not going to fill in any gaps for you. It's not going to make any inferences. It's going to do exactly what you say. Okay. Yeah, your flying did not turn on in the top left corner. So we can see this variable here. It's still 0. Why is it still 0? I said if we're touching the dragon, then set flying to 1, we're clearly touching the dragon. The reason is, and like I said, I did this on purpose because I want there to be these problems in this, because when you get it out there and you're actually coding with your students, there are going to be problems and you're going to have to think through it and try to problem solve it. And so I didn't want to make this a totally like error-free environment. Like there needs to be some difficulties that we work through. Okay, so this says when this button is clicked, if it's touching the dragon, set flying to 1. This checks one time. It checks when that button is clicked, and that's it. And then it's done. If the cat wasn't touching the dragon when we started the program, it's never going to set flying to 1. And so we're never going to be able to fly. So what we need is down here in control, we need a forever loop because we want it to check all of the time. And the forever loop, like all of these in here, are really nice. If you slide it in just right, you can get it to go around stuff. If you keep sliding it further, it'll go around the thing on the inside. We want it on the thing on the outside though. Oh, the green flag button is what your user would use to start the program. It's less of an issue for us as we're coding, but it is up here and you can click it, okay? So now I have this set up so that when that button's clicked, it will always check if the cat is touching the dragon. And if the cat is touching the dragon, it will set flying to 1. So I'll show you what I mean. When I click this button here, remember we told the dragon to hide itself, right? And so it hid and it's gone. But now when I press W, it will appear. And now when I bring my cat over to it, now flying has changed to 1. You can see that this block, this whole set of blocks, has this yellow kind of halo around it. And that means that part of the program is currently running. You can sometimes touch a glimpse of that when you're tapping a button. It'll light up for just a second, but then it turns off as soon as it's not running anymore. This is always highlighted like that because it is always running now, okay? So now, flying is 1. My cat can rise gracefully up through the air. How are we doing? I'm a little bit nervous that I'm getting too fast. Someone let me know in the chat where they're at and if they want any assistance or if they think they're doing okay, but they'll get there, or if they're not thinking they're doing okay and they've given up on programming entirely, just let me know what's going on. Oh, the forever button. Okay. So forever is in the control segment. This is what everything that has to do with logical statements and most things that have to do with timing are. Okay. Having the thing turn to 1. Okay. April, do you want to show us what's going on with your code? And if everything is good and you're happy, then you can try coding your cat to not just fly, but then to also come back down to the ground, because it's like less fun if your cat gets stuck up on the ceiling and you can't get it back down. So you can work on your code to get your cat back on the ground if you would like.
My apple doesn't start out that it's gone.
Oh, you have an apple for your dragon?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, no, you're good. So do you have this when the start button is clicked, your apple hides?
Yes.
Okay, so click the green button for me. Click the green flag. And your apple disappears?
Yes.
Okay. And then when the W key is pressed, does your apple show up?
Yes.
Okay. And so when your cat goes over to the apple, does flying change to 1?
No.
Okay. So my guess is, did you get the forever block in the right place around the outside of the if touching apple?
Hold on a second, let me find it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's on the
I
outside?
have when flag is clicked, forever, if touching apple, then set flying to 1.
And it's not setting it to 1?
No.
Oh man, can you show me your screen? I'll give mine back.
screen.
It
Is it
just
coming
says
up?
share, and it's like a green button on the bottom of the Zoom menu.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, all right. Okay. Forever if
Sharing?
touching apple. Yeah, you're sharing. You're good.
Okay.
Set flying to 1. So is your cat touching your apple?
He was.
Okay, let's go back over there. Oh, go back off of the apple for a second. Okay, click that green button on top.
This one?
Yeah. Okay. So now your apple's hidden, and you have to hit W to get your apple back, right?
Okay.
And now it changes flying to 1.
Awesome. Thank
There
you.
you go. No problem. All right, I'm taking over again. Okay. Did I miss anything in the chat? If I did, let me know. So, we want, oh good, there's the chat. Your person keeps going through the butterfly. It's okay to go through the butterfly. It's not gonna, you haven't programmed it to stop at the thing, so they can occupy the same space. They can be on top of each other. There is a way to program it so that you're not going through it, so that if it hits something, it'll bounce back or it'll just stop, but we're not gonna get into that today, okay? So you're touching the butterfly. I would think that you probably are having the same issue as, help me out, was it April? As April was having, where you haven't clicked that green button to start this loop checking. So if it doesn't look like there's a yellow bit of halo around your code for checking if your cat is touching your magical device, then I would make sure that you have clicked that green flag and then try it again, okay? All right, and I wanna wrap us up on time, so I'm gonna scooch forward a little bit. So I have this when the W key is pressed, if flying is 1, then we're going to change Y by 10. And to get us to have the cat be able to come back down off of the ceiling, we're going to duplicate this whole block. And to duplicate the whole thing, we need to click on the top part, the event that has the little bubble on top of it. So we're going to duplicate it, and then instead of W, we're going to do S. And instead of change Y by 10, we're going to do change Y by -10. So now when I press S, my cat comes back down off of the ceiling. Your thing disappeared because you told it to, Kathleen, right? Hit W and it should come back. Yes, Rachel, it is always going to fly because we haven't told it not to stop flying yet. Don't worry, we'll get there.
Hey, it's easier to say it than type it.
Please.
Clicked on the when, like the one we just duplicated. When I clicked on it, it disappeared. The whole coding
Oh, the whole
sequence.
thing. Okay.
Yeah. So do I have to rebuild it?
I think you probably do. Did you click delete block instead of duplicate maybe?
No, I never even right clicked. I just pressed on it to
That's
move
really
it
weird.
and it just poofed.
You can zoom out on your code window. So before you redo the whole thing, I might zoom out a little bit and see if it didn't just get shifted off screen.
Nope.
Oh,
nothing.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Coding is frustration. I mean, it just is. That stuff happens. And Scratch has tried to take as much frustration out of it as possible. Like one of my favorite things is that if I wanted to change this dragon's name and I wanted the dragon to be called Bob, I can change the dragon's name here. And then back in my code, it changed automatically to if the dragon is touching Bob. Like, I don't know for those of you who never programmed anything by hand, but that's just such a phenomenal thing that you don't have to go back and find all the places you referenced a dragon and then change them to Bob. Okay, so we have one last thing to add, and if you are not flying yet, I will stick around and make sure you fly before you leave if you want to fly before you leave. But I want to make sure we get this wrapped up so that everyone has at least most of the parts in there, because the last important step we have to do is we have to specify start conditions. Okay, so we're going to go to events and we're going to put in a whole new when this button is clicked flag. And we could team it up with this, but I personally think it's better to keep them separate And so that's what I'm going to do. It's up to you though. So these start conditions are important because I want to say, okay, I want my variable to be set to 0. I want flying to be set to 0. So I'm going to go back down to variables and say that when I start, as soon as my person starts playing this game, flying is turned off. No flying yet. You have to unlock flying yourself, not just because someone before you did. And also, if I've left my game in the air, if the last person playing it has the cat up here, the cat's going to start out in the sky and only be able to move back and forth in the sky, and will never be able to touch the dragon even if they get it to appear, and it's going to look super weird. So I'm going to go back up to motion, and I'm going to pull in one of these go to XY blocks. But first, I'm going to put my cat where I want it to be, and Scratch automatically changes this XY block to that. And I'm just going to be a little bit extra and say that I also want my cat to be facing that direction. So I'm going to switch my cat to costume 1 when I start. So now, no matter where my cat is, when I click the start button, flying is off, the dragon disappears, and I'm in this place facing this direction. Okay, and now I can go back and forth. When I hit W, the dragon appears. I go over the dragon. Now I can fly. Pretty cute, right? Like that's not terrible. If you're there, congratulations. If not, let's talk about it. Denise, do you want to share your screen? Show me what's going on. Davis, I'm sorry I didn't tell you how to duplicate the block again. I didn't see that.
This
Glad
is
you
Denise. I'm
Hi, Denise.
going to put in the last thing. Now, part of it is I have different rooms. How do you put things in order?
Oh, okay. Like in order, like I want this down here, because that's
Yeah.
like a totally aesthetic thing. Like you can just drag it wherever you feel like. That doesn't matter for anything except what makes it useful for you.
It doesn't matter the order. Okay,
Nope.
so this last one block is what? Set flying to? Is that what that is?
Yes, set flying
And the
to
green-
0.
And the flag is the start button, right?
Yes, correct.
All right, so I'm going to go to the motion one. I'm doing that. But the thing is, I still don't get the flying. And the only thing that happens when I click on the green flag is the butterfly, which is my dragon, disappear.
Good. Okay, that's a good first step.
Well-
When you hit W, does it make your dragon reappear or your butterfly reappear?
W makes my person go up and down.
Okay, but it doesn't make your butterfly show up.
No, right now my butterfly has appeared, but that's because I have it at the set part.
Okay. So let's check on your butterfly code. Does it look like my butterfly code? Where it says when the start button is clicked, you can hide. And when the W is clicked, you can show?
Yes.
Okay, so when you hit W, does your butterfly appear?
Right now when I hit W, my person is going up and down.
Okay, don't worry about that for a second. Does the butterfly show up?
The butterfly is there.
The butterfly is there. Okay, and then when you click the start, it disappears. Okay, the other part we can take care of. Hey, everybody, you stay as long as you want, and I'm happy to answer any Scratch questions. I am going to share one more thing with you before I totally let you go. I'm going to be sending you a survey in the email, so be looking for that when you fill out your survey. I think I can set it up so it'll automatically set up a certificate for you. So if you're using this for PD hours, you can do that. I am going to be doing 3 Scratch trainings tomorrow. We're going to do this one over again. So if you would like to attend this one again, or if you would like to recommend it to someone, that would be great. At 12:30, I'm going to show you how to make a little interactive story. That is going to be real improvisational and fun. We're basically just going to put 3 different sprites in there and have them interact in some kind of kooky ways. And I'll show you how to use some different blocks. It's a really nice beginner activity that everyone can be successful with. And then at 2 p.m., I'll show you how to do a math maze, which is like, that one's probably not going to be an hour-long training unless one of you can show me how to make a better math maze. Like it is, I love it. but it's a little bit weird and I'm excited about it. I'm also going to start doing Scratch Coffee Hour, and I didn't put the time here on that, at 3:30 on Thursdays, where if you just want to pop into that Zoom meeting, we can share the kind of things we're working on in Scratch. You can get help if you're stuck on something or if you have a student who's stuck on something. And so that will be a cool thing to do if you would like. I'm going to be sending all of those out to the listserv. I'm assuming you're all on the listserv because you are here, and this I think was only advertised through the listserv. If you know people who should be on there that are not, please just have them email me. Recording, I will figure that out. I would be happy, so happy for you to share it with your staff. I would also be happy to do a training for your building if you would like to organize that. And I mean like a virtual training like this, just with people from your school or from your county. I have not started figuring out how to use Makey Makey yet, but I'm going to write that down and I'll see if me or someone in my office feels like that is a training that they could do. Because honestly, I don't even know what you're talking about with Makey Makey, but we'll get there. Okay, we'll figure that out. Does anyone have any questions for me about those kind of logistics or upcoming training things? I don't want to keep you here past when I said I'd keep you here. You all have been so fantastic. Thank you for coming with me on this journey and being guinea pigs for this new training. I hope that it is something that you will be able to help your students with. Okay, now let's get back to making that thing fly. Do you want to share your screen?
I can try.
Definitely.
But before I do that, that last block, what is the purple block? It's a little, I have your screen to do, so I can't read it.
Okay, let me.
Oh, I still need the motion there for the last block.
I'm not sure what we're talking about right now. I'm sharing my
When
screen again.
when we go back to the reset, that flying, that one,
Yes.
right there. Yeah.
Yes.
What does that purple one say? 'Cause mine
It
is-
says switch costume to costume 1, and really that's not super necessary. That's just me being anal and wanting my cat to always be facing the same direction when we start.
No, that's good. How come we won't let me do that? There we go. Okay. All right. Now I'm not sure if this is on a different screen. Can you wait? I have to do something, don't I? I have
Oh
to do
yeah,
something.
I'm gonna stop share, and then you should have, if you kind of mouse down to the bottom of your Zoom window, right in the middle at the bottom, there should be a button that says share that has a little green square with an arrow pointing up in it.
All right. Now this is the one I want. Yeah, really. How do I? Oh, so there we go.
Yeah, you got it. Awesome. Oh, I love your program. Okay, so
I am so excited because I first wrote a program in Fortran, which was all words, and you had to write it by hand. So if you had to do something wrong, it was like that forever.
yeah,
So
isn't
I
this
have
like
been-
so? Like kids don't know what they're like missing with how
Like you
great
can
this
cut and
is.
paste, even HTML. So I want to do a computer simulation game for chemistry.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I don't know if you've been there for more than 2 years, but I'm Jason George's mother. And if you mention his name to Todd, he'll know who that is. So I'm so excited by this, but I'm trying to get my person to fly.
Yeah.
Oh, now I see the problem because I know about computers.
There you
There you
go.
go.
Excellent. That's coming back down though. That shouldn't affect going up.
Well, let's see what it does. Now I'm on here, right? Now I should go like, oops,
Okay, so right now it looks like flying is at 0. Now it's at 1
no, it's at
because you
1.
touched your
It's been at
butterfly.
1. It's been at 1 the whole time.
It wasn't when I got in here. Like if you hit the start flag again, it's going to go back to 0.
Okay, and my butterfly isn't.
Good. So you hit W to get your butterfly back,
Okay.
and then you walk your person over there. Okay, your flying's at 1. Now what happens when you hit W?
Oh,
You're
but isn't it
flying.
supposed to do it automatically?
No, it just enables that control so you can make your person go in the air if you want to. I'm so sorry about not communicating that.
Oh, so in other words, like right now, if I hit W, yeah, she's not going anywhere.
Right. It's just enabling that like up and down motion that the user can control then.
Oh, all right. How do I
You
do
could
it?
program it where as soon as you hit that butterfly, she starts levitating into the air, which would be fun. Like,
That's what I wanted to do.
yeah.
How do
So
I-
then you don't want it to be when the W key is pressed.
That's
You probably want it to be another forever loop, like the one you have. And you say, if touching butterfly, you could probably just drag that change by block into the touching butterfly block. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay.
So, well, okay. I do, but I don't want to mess things up. So
Don't worry
the
about it.
third,
Break
well,
stuff.
yeah, I believe me, I know. So that third block, I want to change it to when, first of all, I want a forever block in there.
Yep.
Forever. That's the control. So I'm going to put the forever in right there. Yeah.
It takes some getting used to manipulate these things. It does.
Well, it does, especially, there we go. Especially for me with visuals. Since like I said, I'm used to
Yeah.
actually writing code.
Yeah.
Although this is a lot clearer than new radio, which I've also done, which is also totally visual,
Okay.
but doesn't explain it. Anyway, okay, so I got when now. I got it
So
wrong.
I think you're going to want to nest it if then again. And I think you're going to want to change your event to when the start key is pressed.
Okay, so this one I need to change.
Yeah. And you're going to pull out that whole thing and replace it with a different event block. So if you pull the forever loop, oh, don't delete it. Oh, or
Well,
do. That's fine too. Okay.
Well, it's okay. Like
It's
we said,
fine.
not
It's
that big of a
fine.
deal.
So you want forever, and then you're going to want two if thens in there that are
Okay.
nested if you want to do that right now. Yeah. Okay. So to start that out, you're going to want a when clicked block.
Right.
And I feel like this is probably not the most elegant way you could do this, but this is what we've got right now, right? So you're going to want another if touching butterfly, and then you're going to want a variable check. So you go down to sensing, just like where you're at, give it a click. It's that first one.
So, and
Yeah.
then I know I want to say touching butterfly.
Yeah.
Then, go ahead.
And then in there, you're going to put one of those same checks like you have for if flying equals 1. And then you're just going to have the go to block or the change Y by 100 block. All right, I'm stealing your screen back from you because I want to show off what I've got on mine.
Okay.
And let me see. Yeah, I do want to start this one. Okay. So who is still in here who wants things? Let me
Can I
know.
just say that if other people do not want to hear this,
You are good. Okay. So, Nikki, this is the last bit of code. And Tony Brothers, if you're still there, this is the last bit of code. Nikki, it kind of seems like you wanted contact information. Is that right? You can either type in the chat or unmute yourself. Yeah, email. Okay. This one. Okay. Okay. And please get in touch with me by email. I'll put you on our listserv. We try not to send out too much stuff. It is really tailored towards science teachers, but we have a lot of cool stuff that we do. And then this is our ending code. You all have been amazing. This has been so much fun. I'm going to stop our recording now because I remembered we were recording. But like I said, I am here for any Scratch related questions, any suggestions, any things that you want to know about.
How do we save it?